Thank you. Secretary Kerry, I was struck by the language in your opening statement. ISIL must be defeated, period, end of story, and collectively we are all going to be measured by how we carry out this mission. From a military perspective, the plan of carrying out this mission involves a combination of Iraqi forces in Iraq, from the military perspective, more capacity, of course the Kurds, moderate rebels in Syria, and American air power, no combat boots on the ground on the part of the United States. But over the last few days since the President's made that announcement, there's been real doubts expressed by military experts over whether that strategy will achieve what you've defined as our goal. The Washington Post reported that the top U.S. commander in the Middle East advised the President that we needed a modest contingent of American troops, especially special operation forces, to advise and assist Iraqi army units. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs yesterday in the Armed Services Committee said that if local forces don't work, he would recommend U.S. ground troops potentially to the President. So my question is, if it becomes clear that the only way to achieve the defeat of ISIL, period, end of story, is for the engagement of American ground troops, will that be something the President will consider at that time?
The President will not put American ground troops into Iraq, and the President made it clear again today in a statement that he made at CENTCOM that America can make a decisive, I'm quoting the President, we can make a decisive difference, but I want to be clear, the troops that have been deployed to Iraq do not and will not have a combat mission. We believe, and we're not going to deal with hypotheticals about what happens if and this, we believe there are any number of options as to how one can guarantee the effect on ISIL long before you were to get to the hypothetical conversation about Americans. So I understand the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, whose job it is to look at it from his perspective in terms of his military and his judgment. But the President's made a judgment as Commander-in-Chief that that's not in the cards, and that's where we are.
So even if the only way, if the military experts...
I'm not going to deal with a hypothetical.
Well, it's not a hypothetical. It's actually, it appears to be, quite frankly, we're relying on a military strategy built on rebels who at this point are under assault, not just by ISIL, but by the Assad regime, by local Iraqi forces, of which some testimonies say up to half are incapable of fighting at this stage, and Kurds that have been great fighters but are only willing to protect their territory. Well, this is a very clearly stated goal, and the reason why it's not a hypothetical is there may come a point where what you're saying is that if the only thing that can solve this problem is U.S. combat forces, we're not going to do that and ISIL gets to stay.
But I think we're so far away from that quote being the only way and hypothetical. I mean, honestly.
Then let me ask you this.
No, let me just finish that quote. I mean, you know, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals, but you're presuming that Iran and Syria don't have any capacity to take on ISIL. Well, I mean, who knows? I'm not going to I don't know what's going to happen here. Let's start down this road and see.
Well, let me ask you about that then. So what you're saying now is that there is the opportunity, the potential that the U.S. would be coordinating with Iran?
No, I never said anything about coordinating. If we're failing and failing miserably, who knows what choice they might make. You prepositioned this on the notion we're failing. I don't believe we're going to fail.
I didn't preposition.
And we're not setting out.
I'm prepositioning on the statement.
You did. You
military
said if we fail.
Well, again, I'll go back to the report. I mean, the number of people, including former Defense Secretary Gates, has expressed his belief that it's not possible. A number of highly qualified military experts have said they do not believe that the goal you have stated in your opening statement is achievable without a U.S. presence.
There are lots of possibilities between here and there. The President has said he is not going to put America.
Well, you mentioned Iran, and you know, Iran yesterday said that not that it was on the sidelines of these negotiations. They claimed that the U.S. ambassador in Iraq reached out to the Iranian ambassador in Iraq and asked to discuss some sort of level of coordination. And the Iranians already gave us our answer. If you said you were open to some sort of dialogue with them, if it had any sort of promise to be productive, he's already answered the question. He says he sees no point in coordinating with a country whose hands are dirty. That's what he said about us. He says, quite frankly, that he said this, not me, please, but he says that you're lying, that we did not exclude them from the talks to join the coalition. They excluded themselves, that they refused to participate. And he went on to say that in Iraq, the U.S. goal is to turn it into a playground where we can enter freely and bomb at will. I would just say that any hopes of coordinating with Iran, who I consider to be just as evil as ISIS, is something that I would discourage for a number of different reasons. But I want to ask you this one more question, and it has to do with the rebels in Syria. Later today, Ambassador Ford is going to testify that the biggest enemy that moderate opposition faces is the Assad regime. In fact, there are credible reports today that the Assad regime has stepped up its targeting of moderate rebel or non-ISIS rebel forces in the hopes of wiping them out so that the Assad regime, will be the only alternative left in Syria. If we are interested in supporting the moderate rebels, will it not require us to protect them from Syrian as well, from the Assad regime as well, if we hope that they can develop into a credible fighting force?
ISIL first. That's our policy.
Well, but Ambassador Ford is going to testify later today that the biggest enemy they face is the Assad regime bombing them. And there are reports today, credible reports, that Assad has stepped up his campaign attacking these moderate rebels. They may not be there for us to arm.
That's not our judgment, but we obviously recognize that there are serious challenges with the Assad regime, and our policy has not changed of opposing the Assad regime and helping the moderate opposition. And in classified forum, I think we have a better opportunity to discuss what we're doing additionally in order to do that.